Alright folks, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got a real treat for you, an exclusive interview with the one and only Robben Ford. Now, if you don't know, Robben is one of the most influential guitarists of all time, known for his incredible touch, his tone and his ability to blend blues, jazz and rock like nobody else. And this year, we're thrilled to be hosting Robben at our guitar retreat in Scotland, alongside Larry Carlton, Guthrie Trapp, Robbie McIntosh and others. Absolute masters of the guitar all in one place. Now, if you want to be part of that, then you can check out the link in the description. But before that, ahead of the retreat, Robben sat down with Andy for an amazing interview where he talks about his approach to teaching, his philosophy in learning guitar, and most importantly, why you don't need to be technically brilliant to be a great guitarist. Now, this is an incredibly insightful conversation from one of the best players in the world that I think every player should hear. So make sure you've got some time, sit back, and enjoy this chat with the one and only Robben Ford.
Welcome to Guitar Made Easy's YouTube channel, and today we are joined by, in my opinion, the greatest living guitar player, Robben Ford. How are you, Robben?
I'm good. Thank you. Yeah.
Awesome.
As you know, I live in London now, so I'm a local.
Yeah, so that my first question really was, you've been moving around quite a bit. I believe you were in Nashville, then Paris, and now London. Are you settled in London? Like, are you planning to go somewhere else?
Well, no. I mean, yes, we are settled in London, and we're not planning on going anywhere else. Nashville, I was there for 5 years, and we went through the whole COVID thing, in Nashville. And after that was over, and Nashville started reopening. Donald Trump was elected president for the first time. He was our president at that time. I have wanted to live in Europe for many, many years, but that door just never opened up. And I speak a little French, and I really have always wanted to improve that French. And it's like, okay, let's go. Let's get out of here, get out of the U.S. and move to Paris. And moving to France maybe is a good idea. Moving to Paris, not such a good idea. It's a really it's a rough city, man. Beautiful, but it's not a friendly place. And the language barrier was a problem, and the bureaucracy was just insane. So after a year, with England just right up the road, and having friends in London, and also there's just so many musicians here, we just decided, we took a look, we came up, and visited for a little while. It's like, yeah, okay, let's go. So we've moved to London, and we plan on staying.
Yeah, awesome. I really like London myself.
Great city.
Yeah, it really is. A lot of people, especially in Scotland, feel like it's too big, it's too busy, but there's so many different areas and cool things happening. It's
Yeah,
really interesting.
yeah.
So you recently had a tour in Italy, Dragon Tales, and it was a tribute to Jeff Beck and Alexander Dumble, and you were revisiting the Stratocaster. So how did using that guitar for this project change your approach to playing? Because I know in the past that you've had a sort of funny relationship with the Strat.
Hmm. Yeah, I had uh, I thought it was a 58. Somebody told me it was a 57 Strat, Tobacco Burst. It was a great guitar. But just for me, the only way I really used it was when I was in what I considered more of a supportive role, kind of rhythm guitar role. Uh, with Miles Davis, I played that Strat. With David Sanborn, I played that Strat because that was again, as far as I was concerned, a supporting role. And I thought the Strat was just a much better rhythm instrument, than like a humbucking guitar would be. So especially in those, they're both, kind of rock, R&B, settings. So that's that's the only time I ever really used the Strat a lot. And I moved back to the humbucking pickups, and more Les Paul style guitar. This, for me, the whole idea, of doing what I consider a tribute to Jeff Beck, on the guitar side, the amplifier is the Dumble, you know, um, but the guitar had to be a Strat in order to, I feel, tribute Jeff Beck. And there was no way I was going to be able to play like him, but I could be influenced by him. And that was a very refreshing thing for me to do, you know. Otherwise, I pick up the guitar that I play, and I play like I play. And, you know, if I'm practicing, I practice those things, that I might practice. The Strat just, it's a whole nother world. It really is just a whole nother world. So it was exciting for me, and to start using the vibrato, which now, like, I don't want to do without it. And I've only really been doing this now for, we recorded, was it September or October? And I was writing a bit before then. So I've only been doing this Strat thing for about 5 months. And I just really, really like it. It's new, and it's exciting for me. I've also gotten, more into the use of pedals, which I was already headed in that direction, because you're always looking for some way to, freshen up, you know, your creativity. And pedals are something that you can use to do that, get some different sounds, and different sound makes you play a different way. So now the Strat has just really, goosed my enjoyment, curiosity, creative impulse,
I think it's really indicative of your career. You always have, like, a lot of players are known like Jeff Beck, although he would play the Les Paul earlier on, like he's really known for the Strat, but you do seem to change. For a long time I was convinced you would stick with the Telecaster, but then do we see a return of the Telecaster in the future?
It's anytime I say no to anything, it always happens anyway. So I can't say. I'm sure the telly will, arise, again at some point. But for me, it was always the telly was I considered like my blues guitar, and then a humbucking guitar, which I've had the Robben Ford models. I started playing Les Pauls a lot. I I went through 12 Les Pauls, man. Vintage, new, all kinds of things, and I never just landed on one. And then Paul Reed Smith and I designed a guitar, and that has been the closest thing to comfort that I've felt in a long time. With the humbucking type guitar, Les Paul type guitar. So it's been great. But then this Strat thing, just somehow I felt inspired, to do the Jeff Beck tribute, because he was unknown territory for me. You know what I mean? In terms of, I wasn't ever influenced by him, but I loved him. I came to love Jeff Beck later in life. I think I didn't really tune into Jeff Beck till like mid 2000s. For real. Of course, I was hip to him. I knew of him, but I wasn't listening.
Yeah.
And I went out and I saw him play in Southern California when I was still living there. And it was like the best guitar concert I'd ever heard. I'm like, oh man, this is the cat. So, but still, I didn't play Strats, and he has such a unique style. So after him passing away, I haven't seen a lot of tribute to him.
That's true. That's very true.
It's weird.
Yeah.
I mean, Clapton hosted that thing, right, in London.
Sure.
at the Royal Albert Hall. And that's it that I've seen, And I felt like this is good, this will be good for me. I'll be happy to pay tribute to him, and and it just turned into for me a very creative and rewarding. It has been, a very creative and rewarding journey,
Is the tour in Australia and Europe that's coming up, is that Dragon Tales? Is that the same kind of thing that we can expect?
Well, it's not the same band, The Dragon Tales thing also was like an opportunity for me to put together a band of super high end players, Daryl Jones, Larry Goldings, and Gary Husband. So the whole thing, the album was cut with the group, although I'm going to flesh it out a little bit further here in London. But, I have a couple of guys that I play with here in London, in England, and, Europe, we've done things. Ian Thomas, I don't know if you know Ianto Thomas, a great drummer, lives here in London, and an organ player named Johnny Henderson, whom you're probably familiar with, Matt Schofield.
Yeah, yeah.
So Johnny has played with Matt his entire life for both of them. And whenever, if Matt's going to do something, he wants Johnny, and if Johnny can, he always goes. And so when I came over here, and even in the past, before I was living here, I'd called Johnny to play with me. And I've known him since he was a teenager. I met both him and Matt years ago because they were huge Blue Line fans, my group, the Blue Line.
Yeah, yeah.
So we've been acquainted for a long time, and Johnny's just a great player, great organ player. So that's been the group, and sometimes I add a saxophone to it. But I like the B3 organ, with the left-hand bass, out of the organ. I've always liked that sound, and bass players usually drive me crazy because they play too much and too loud,
Okay.
Can't get a guy to do what I want.
I
So
think I think the last time that I saw you when you played in Glasgow, you had the upright, and that was I think that might have been the bringing it back home kind of era.
that's right. That's
That
what
was
it was.
that was an awesome band.
I love the upright. That just settles that whole thing down, you know?
Yeah.
You can't really play it too loud. And you can't move around, so you just groove over there. I love the upright, man.
That's awesome. Okay, so the Guitar Dreams Luxury Guitar Retreat that we have planned at Loch Lomond for June will be an incredible event. You'll be teaching alongside legends Larry Carlton, Guthrie Trapp, Robbie McIntosh, and more. What can attendees expect from your masterclass, and what do you enjoy most about connecting with players at events like this?
Hmm. For me, I focus on musicianship. If that's really, it's like the last thing that a lot of guitar players focus on is musicianship. They think that if they learn a bunch of stuff on the guitar, that they'll be musicians. And it comes from another place. Musicianship is not the instrument that you play, you know. Clearly, there's a lot of different instruments to play for one thing, and a lot of different ways of playing instruments. So you have to bring yourself to the instrument. That's the key from my side. That's the place that I come from. Is like, find the musician in you. So I try to wake that musician up in there because everybody's got one. I mean, I'm a firm believer that anybody can do this. I really feel that way in my heart of hearts. I don't think that anyone's excluded, because you see, like people play next to nothing on an instrument and communicate with people far better than somebody who can play a ton of things on an instrument. So that's what's going. It's It's the relationship, the human, and yeah, the human's got a guitar. So what does the human do with the guitar? The human, not the. Everybody thinks it's out here, man. Everybody thinks it's on the thing. It's like no, it's in here. Here.
Yeah, well, I can't wait for the guests to get a bit of that. And I tend to believe that also with students. I always say it's like it's from like Joe Pass to Kurt Cobain. Like everybody has something to say,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and like you say, it's not on the instrument. Sometimes the instruments are not even in tune on some of these recordings, but there's an energy there
Yeah,
that's palpable. Okay. So
yeah,
talking
like
about I want to talk about a kind of classic album here. So you were part of Joni Mitchell's iconic "Hissing of Summer Lawns," and I'm interested how you first got involved with that project. Obviously, Larry Carlton was on the previous album. Do you have a story about those sessions and maybe even how Larry kind of passed the baton in a sense in that lineup for yourself?
uh-huh. Yeah, sure. Well, actually, I was just leaving Jimmy Witherspoon. I'd been with Jimmy Witherspoon for 2 years. I was 22 years old. So I joined Spoon when I was 20. And I was literally in the office of the management company waiting for Spoon. He was going to come over. And I wanted to tell him in person, that I was ready. I needed to go. I needed to move on. And as I'm waiting in the office, someone comes and says, "Hey, Robben, there's a phone call for you." I'm like, okay. Last thing I would have expected anyway. So I go to the phone and it was Tom Scott. And I didn't know who Tom Scott was. I didn't know who the LA Express was. I wasn't familiar with Joni Mitchell's music. I didn't know who Larry Carlton was. Um, and so Tom says, how'd you like to go on the road with Joni Mitchell? Tom, he's such a goofball. I said, well, actually, I didn't even know who any of them were. And I'm like, well, actually, I'm just leaving Jimmy Witherspoon. I really want to go off and do my own thing. And he said, well, how about if I come over and I'll bring you the acetate. The records hadn't come out. The acetate for Hissing of Summer Lawns and, Court and Spark and the LA Express's first album. So, okay, he came over and we sat in a little room at the offices there with a record player and started listening. And I did not like the LA Express's music. To me, it was just this pop, fusiony, jazzy thingy that I thought was kind of corny. And then we're listening to the Joni Mitchell record, and that was clearly, incredible music. It was the same musicians, right? John Guerin and Max Bennett, Joe Sample, Larry Carlton. And my ear just kept going to the drummer. I kept just really liked the drummer, which was John Guerin. And he says, so look, why don't you come over tomorrow to A&M Records and just have a play with us. I'm like, well, what do I got to lose? And he had told me that Roger Kellaway was the piano player, keyboard player. And I knew who Roger Kellaway was. And I'm like, well, that would be cool to meet him. And I went over and we were in one of the studios at A&M Records, incredible studios over there, And Larry Carlton came down to show, what he was playing on the record. So I met Larry for the first time and he goes, yeah, this is, I'm doing this kind of a thing here, And so I played with them. And while we're playing, at a certain point, Joni walked in. And man, did she look unbelievably cool, beautiful, I mean, I was struck, like, wow. And she just walks in and she had a big smile on her face and she sat down on the floor and just kind of watched. And I think that they'd already decided that I had the gig. if I wanted it, and so after I played, it turned out another couple of guitar players were coming in, so they were sort of auditioning people. I didn't know, I just came over to play, to see what was up. But anyway, so Tom takes me outside. He goes, "Hey, look, we have to go through this little song and dance with these other guys, but you have the gig if you want the gig." And I had to think about it, because it literally happened the same day that I was leaving Spoon, and going back up to San Francisco, and I had other plans. So it took me a minute, but I, of course, accepted. They were so great, just great musicians, really nice people. Joni was just, fantastic. And they were paying a lot of money. So the whole thing was just so first class, high end, top dog shit. Okay. And so the first album that I was on was the live album
Yeah, that's right.
from the tour, Miles of Isles. And then they had me in on the Hissing of Summer Lawns. I'm on about half. No, I think only about 4 songs on that record. But I did the tour.
Cool, awesome. Since then, you and Larry have obviously collaborated multiple times, most notably on the Live in Tokyo album. What makes working with him so special, and is there a particular moment or performance together that stands out to you?
Um, Larry was always really cool to me. As I say, I wasn't familiar with him yet, until I met him, over there with the LA Express. And then, of course, I found out that he was the guitar player for the Crusaders. And we played a couple of gigs with the Crusaders. The LA Express and the Crusaders went on the road up in the Northwest. And so I got some exposure to him then. And one day he called me. I was living in LA. I had moved back to LA. And he called me up. He said, "Hey, man, you want to get together?" I said, "Sure." So I went over to his house and we did some jamming. And he said, "You want to do some gigs?" And I said, "Sure." So we played at Dante's in North Hollywood a couple of times with Joe Sample, Pops Popwell, and um, the great drummer who passed away from Toto.
Picaro?
Yeah, Jeff Carl. And so we got acquainted there and played together there a bit. And then, every now and then we'd come across each other on the road. We'd be at the same festival, North Sea Festival or something. And then we were both on this, it was Les Paul's 90th birthday concert in New York at the Rose Garden. I can't remember what it's, the Rose Garden, I think it's called. It was an old dance hall. Beautiful. Oh man, so many people were there, guitar players. And afterward, Larry said, "Hey man, you want to go to Japan?" I'm like, yes. So we went to Japan, and that was a live recording from there that was released. And then we did something in Paris.
Yeah.
And we just continued for about 2.5 years to tour Europe. We were in Australia. We did a lot of touring for about 2.5 years there. And, man, it was always just so easy. It just felt easy.
Yeah.
But, all the time, playing with him, hanging with him. We had a good time. And I actually miss that. It's been a long time since I've even seen him. I saw him out in Nashville a little bit, but maybe twice, over 5 years. And so, yeah, I kind of miss him, as a friend, just to see him. And of course, playing together was always a blast, you know.
Yeah. So for our Guitar Dreams event, that's been the feedback. Everybody's so excited because both you and Larry will be teaching at the same event. And
Mhm.
when I spoke to Larry's management, that was one of the big things for him was, well, of course Robben's going to be there. So
Yeah,
it's going to be really cool for everybody to see you guys together again.
yeah.
Um, Shifting gears a little bit, you've been teaching for many years, going back to your time at GIT in LA, where you mentored players including Andre Christobam, who is also performing at the Guitar Dreams event. Actually, I have a mug here. I'll be remiss to not show you this. So Andre got me this mug because he knows how big a fan I am of you. So the caricature of Robben Ford.
Funny.
And so from those days of teaching, you know, it was a different world to now with your guitar dojo where you can connect with people all over the world
Yeah.
from the comfort of your home. Like, how has your how has that changed? Has it changed the way that you teach? Has it changed the way that you connect with people? Like, what's been your experience through all these years of teaching?
Well, you know, at the Music Institute, um, I would come in like once a week and sit in a counseling room, and people would just come in and out. I didn't teach there. I was just kind of a visiting counselor, you know, from time to time. And you know, for me, it was it was kind of like where I developed, you know, my style, my approach, because initially, you know, I had things written out on paper. Like if I would do a clinic, I would pass things out. You know, I'd have some stuff, and even uh, in Ojai, in California, where I lived for many years, we used to do like every 3 months we'd do an all day event, and I had, you know, things written on paper, you know, that I would dish out. We might never even look at it, you know, because I just, you know, I found that the best way for me to teach what I have to teach, you know, is just to open my mouth and start talking, you know. So, you know, you try different things. I don't know. A lot of people, I never had a teacher, you know. So I think if you've had teachers, then you've learned a method that you can pass along, you know. And I've never had that. So my whole style of teaching has become like a very personal kind of way of teaching, you know. As I said, you know, it's about the human, you know, it's about that that's the real thing, you know, like one of the stories that I like to tell people, you know, as I say, I was a counselor at MI off and on visiting, you know, and they had a performance room, and you know, I stuck my head into the performance room one day just to see what might be going on, and you know, there's somebody playing, you know, with a group, and they're playing fusion, you know, kind of thing, and playing all their chops and everything, and there's like about 3 or 4 people in there. It wasn't, you know, like a mandatory situation, and it wasn't a concert. It was just a place for people that can go play. Uh, and so, okay, blah blah. Then this dude with motorcycle boots, leather jacket, t-shirt, looks like he hasn't showered in a while. You know, looks like he just got out of bed. He's got a Telecaster, and he starts just banging on the guitar, this kind of rocked out shit, and the room fills up. Everybody wanted to come see that, you know? I'm like, check it out. You know? Who's communicating here? You know? Who has something to say here? So it was more proof positive to me that anybody can do this. They just have to have nerve. You just you have to man up, woman up, you know, whatever. You have to be yourself. And there's a Buddhist saying that is confidence precedes all virtue. So you have to stand up. So this is I try to get people excited about what's there, what's inside them, what they're inspired, that is what needs to happen, and can happen on the guitar for anybody.
Wow. And something that really sticks with me from one of your True Fire programs, you said, and I use this with students all the time. You said, "I'm not trying to impress you. I'm trying to affect you." And I thought that was amazing, because like you say, there's so many people are trying to. It's all about impressing and showing off, and like that's not always, or often that's not what makes the impact. Really, is it? It doesn't leave a lasting impression on you.
No, I call it the Northern Lights.
Okay.
It happens and then it's gone,
Okay, one more question. You've accomplished so much as a player, a composer, a teacher. What's next for you? And is there a dream project that you've yet to tackle?
you know. There have been a couple of, dream projects, and it happens and then it's over. Um, so I don't know, man. This recent thing, the Dragon Tales project, tribute to Jeff Beck. This has, for me right now, it's exhilarating, you know, and I'm going to pursue this for a while. And it affects the way you practice, right? Because it's a different way of playing the guitar, than I've ever done. So I've kind of made my peace with the fact that I'll never be the fastest guitar player in the world. I've never had a ton of chops in that way. I'm so impressed with how fast some people can play, and just all over the guitar is like, holy. I'm a blues guitar player, man. I just understand harmony, and I've exercised that. I learned chords and I understand harmony, and I use it in the same way that I would play the blues. So okay, I'm pretty good with that, and I can live with it. Even though I'll never be able to do that, but that's okay. Um, so it, I'm kind of in the middle of this Stratocaster Jeff Beck thing, so I can't really think too much about the future
Very
from that
pleased.
point of view, honestly. And it's never what I think anyway.
Yeah,
It's always
amazing.
different than what I think it's going to be.
Robin, thank you so much for your time today. We're really excited for the Guitar Dreams event, and also I'm looking forward to seeing you in May in Glasgow. Can't wait.
Oh, right on.
It's Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to that very much. And yeah, that's my British group.
awesome. Can't wait. Have a fantastic day, Robin, and we'll speak soon.
It's been a pleasure, Andy. Thank you.